Welcome, everyone, to this special edition of For the Succos Table, aired right before the Yom Tov of Succos, but of course available for you throughout Succos on TorahAnytime.com, on Kol Haloshin, and other carriers. Sponsorship opportunities for these special talks are available, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi at AOL.com. We're going to dedicate this shir L'Fush Shalema for Tzipora Rezel Bas Rachel, for Ruvain Ben Tema, for Chai Rachel Etel Bas Shalamis, for Pinchas Menachem Ben Leah. They shall have L'Fush Shalema B'Sech Shechel Yisrael. So we know, with excitement, we go into the sukkah tonight. And the first thing, we say a tefillah beforehand, and we say in that tefillah a very important request. We say, Hashem yechoshiv lizos kihilu hirchakti nedoid. Let my leaving my house and going into the sukkah be considered as if I was exiled in wandering. Now this means that Hashem says sometimes we might, chas v'shalom, have judgment against us. We could do something akin to that judgment and exempt ourselves from a harsher judgment. We have this idea where it says that Noach also deserved punishing, but instead of him being attacked by the gopheress, by the sulfur in the flood, he was put in a tevis atze gopher, of gopher wood. Since the gopher is somewhat like gopheress, the being incarcerated in the jail of the teva for a year in gopher was instead of being sulfurized by gopheress. Not a bad trade. That's why by an ofruf we throw bags at the chassan, that if he should have to be pelted and have things hurled at him, may it be fulfilled by throwing the sweets at him, the candies and the marshmallows. And the Gemara tells us sometimes when there was a dream and an Amora felt that something might happen to him, he turned over his chair. So that should be, instead of he being turned over, chas v'shalom, and going into the ground. So the same way we say, we just had Yom Kippur, God forbid, we don't want to have to leave our home to go to the hospital. God forbid, to the emergency room. So we say, if we're supposed to leave our home, let it be fulfilled by our leaving our home and going into the sukkah. That might be cold, that might be a little cramped, that might be not as comfortable. So yechashav lizais kilu chakti nedait. Similarly, if God forbid somebody was supposed to go to jail, or somebody was supposed to, Rachmana litzlan, get divorced and move into a basement or get separated. Instead, let me go out in the sukkah, and it should be the gezeira to leave should be fulfilled on the sukkah. Sometimes a person, God forbid, the parnasa isn't good, and the bank could seize their house in foreclosure, and they would have to leave the house. Instead of that happening, let it be going out to the sukkah. Yechashav lizais kilu chakti nedait. That's one of the reasons why Sukkot falls out, not in Pesach time when we left Mitzrayim, which would be the obvious time to sit in the sukkah, when we first enjoyed the Anoni HaKavod, but after Yom Kippur, so that we should be able to say, Yechashiv lizais ki'ilu irchakti nedait. It's a very important kavan. Now, there is a very, very, very important bach in the Torah that really defines an important way to fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah. It says in the pasuk that Kol Ezrach b'Yisrael, every native Jew, Yeshvu b'Sukkos. Why? L'man yedu doreisechem, in order that your generation should know, ki b'Sukkos hayshafti es b'nei Yisrael, that in Sukkos I sat in b'nei Yisrael, b'yitzia isam, when I took them out, me'eretz Mitzrayim. Says the Bach, since the pasuk clearly states Laman, we sit in the sukkah in order, Laman Yedu, in order that we should know. Therefore, says the Bach, who was the of Bezdin of the great city of Krakow, Kevan d'chsiv Laman Yedu, lo kayem ha-mitzvah kitikuna, you don't fulfill the mitzvah properly, im lo yoda kavanas mitzvah zu kafi pshuta, if you don't have in mind the basic idea, and that is that we're sitting under the schach, under the mat, the bamboo mats, in order to remember that Hashem put us in Sukkos when we came out of Mitzrayim. Now, what are Sukkos? So now we have a machloikis in Masech the Sukkah Yud Aleph from the Beis. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer says that Sukkos are the Anani HaKavod, the clouds of glory that surrounded us on all six sides, and there was a seventh cloud that went in front of us. By the way, that's why Sukkot is 7 days. It's really, really confusing. Why is Sukkot 7 days? We understand why Pesach is 7 days. We came out of Egypt, and on the seventh day, the sea split. And the middle days were quasi, the mitzvah didn't get a hold of us, but they were breathing down our backs, so that's only Cholamoid. It's not full Kedusha. But we know Sukkot commemorates the 40 years in the desert. 40 isn't even divisible by 7. Why are there 7 days in Sukkot? So the Sefer Matamim says there's 7 days in Sukkot because there were 7 clouds, one above, one below, 4 around us, and 1 that went in ahead to level the ground and to kill the snakes and the scorpions. That's Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that there were sukkahs mamish, booths that we actually lived in. Booths that we lived in when we were in the... Now, we paskin, Anani HaKavod is actually a shita that says that there's a change in the gerso between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar, but either way, we paskin that we commemorate the Anani HaKavod, the clouds of glory. And the Aruch LaNer, who anyone in yeshiva will know the Aruch LaNer from the Sechtes like Yevamis, a very, very, very necessary sefer. So the Aruch LaNer says that he believes that according to the Bach, that if you don't think about the Anani HaKavod, it's possible that you don't even fulfill the mitzvah b'di'evet. You have to do a do-over. And he says it's similar to what we say in the Haggadah about Pesach and Matzah and Maror, when we say Kol Shalayama Shloisha Dvarim Elu, you call in the women, Kol Shalayama Shloisha Dvarim Elu, right? Matzah Shanu Eichel Al Shema, Maror Zeh Shanu Eichel Al Shema. If you don't say these 3 things, Lo Yotzi Yedei Chayvazam. And another great Rav in Krakow, later on, Rav Shimon Seifer, they tell over a story that on the first night he was sitting in his sukkah, and as was his custom, he said all kinds of beautiful Torahs. He was also a composer, so he sang songs that he composed specially for Yom Tov, and he ate, and then he dozed off. And he woke up, it was after Chatzais, it was like 1 a.m, and he looked startled. The men were sleeping in the sukkah, the women had already gone into the house to sleep. And he looked outside, and there was a neighbor that was still up in the sukkah. So he walked over, he knocked on the door, and of course they opened up the Rav. What can we do? So Rav Shimon Seifer said, I was singing and learning, and I fell asleep, and then I realized I was so hungry, and I ate with such a geschmack that I might have been distracted, I might have forgotten to think about the Anani HaKavod. So do you have Lechem Mishnah that I could wash again? And the Aruch LaNer, the Bikura Yaakov, he says that Parents should instruct their family and their children, when you're eating, think about the Anani HaKavod. Now, of course, what to think about the Anani HaKavod is simple. In the desert, if you didn't have a shelter, you died. The heat dehydrated a person. In the night, people died from frostbite. It was so cold. So the Anani HaKavod miraculously protected 3 million Jews, with the Erev Rav, it's about 3 million Jews, from dehydration and the heat and frostbite. But that's just the beginning. You have to know that all around were very dangerous people, ruthless people, some cannibalistic people. All the cities in those days had high walls, b'tzuros ad hashamayim, fortified until the heavens. And here we were, 3 million people, completely exposed, untrained, without an army. And nobody bothered us, because we had the clouds of glory around us. It was only when Aaron died, and the clouds were temporarily removed, that came as concern that Amalek was able to attack. So the clouds protected us. The clouds was a shield, a cloaking device to save us. Also, we have to know that we didn't have any stores. We wore the same clothes for 40 years. How did they stay fresh? How did they not disintegrate? So it says we stuck it up into the anan and it came back clean and fresh and pressed like new. And it grew with us. It's an amazing thing, the Anani HaKavod. But the question is that all it is? You know, we had a lot of other miracles. I could have made Sukkos all about the Be'er Shel Miriam, the mobile rock. Hachov chi atzur agam moyim. He changed the rock into a marsh of water. But this wasn't just a little fountain that you have in the first floor in yeshiva. You have a fountain, or you have in the park. No, this was a mobile rock that had more water than Niagara Falls. It gave water for 3 million people and the animals, and things grew around the Be'er that they were able to bring nesachim from wine. They were able to bring menachas. Things grew around it from a rock that traveled for 40 years. We can make a whole Yom Tov about that, but we don't. And what about the mun? The mun fell to your door. No matter where you traveled, it always came to your door. If you were a tzaddik, if you were a rush, you had to take a hike. But everybody had his mun. And it tasted, if you were righteous, whatever you wanted it from. And cosmetics came down together with the mun, so that the women should look beautiful for their husbands and feel pretty. Why do we make a Yom Tov just about the Anani HaKavod? So if you look in the Mishnah Berurah, it says Anani HaKavod came first, and that's a catalyst that you should think about all the other miracles. That's true. The Chidah says a very important idea. The Chidah says that we make a special zeicher for the Anani HaKavod because the Anani HaKavod came without complaining. The other things, food and drink, came vayiloinu el Moshe. They murmured, they complained. But we never complained for the Anani HaKavod. And says the Chidah, for something to be worthy to commemorate throughout the ages, it has to be something that came without complaining. You know, it's very natural to complain. Every shul has professional complainers. Professional complainers. First they say, why don't they take care of this? Who's the they? Usually shuls don't have paid employees. They forget that they're part of the they. In shul, there are people that roll up their sleeves and do, and then there are people that complain. It says in Yukam Purkan, those that put together shuls for davening, work to get minyanim, work to get things done properly, and then there's the Misha Bam B'Seicham L'Spal, the people that just come in and daven. A lot of times the complainers are from the Misha Bam B'Seicham L'Spal. Complainers are not worth remembering. That's what it says, that Yisra has an extra parsha. The extra parsha starts from Ba'ata Sechazeh. You should see to get helpers. So everybody asks, the parsha that Yisro introduced started with him pointing out the problem. Novo Table. If you're going to do it yourself, you're going to wear yourself out. So everybody answers in unison. To see problems, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, any Reuven, Shimon, and Levi could see the problems. It's to find the solutions. That's special. When you come with a solution. Come that you want to roll up your sleeves. Don't bother the Rav and the president with problems. They know that there's a problem. They know that it was stuffy in shul. Oh, you have an idea, maybe to introduce some fans, maybe to work something else out, to leave open certain doors. Okay, they know the problems. There's too much talking. They know the problems. Come with a solution. Make a special share, bring in a speaker to talk about tefillah. Ananiah Kavod came without complaining. That's worth commemorating. You know, the Chidah says that the Ananiah Kavod, it says, Ki basukas hoishafti. It doesn't say Ki basukas holchu. They went in sukkahs. It doesn't say Ki basukas yashvu. It says Ki basukas hoishafti. It's a famous Chidah. The Chidah says that the Ananiah Kavod on the bottom was a conveyor belt. And he says it was like we were in a cruise ship. And it conveyed us. Hashafti, Hashem sat us in, and for 40 years we were conveyed around. We didn't have to walk, we didn't have to trudge with men, women, and children. We were conveyed. But I want to share with you, this is actually supposed to be a shorter share for the Succos Table. I want to share with you an idea that Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the great Baal Mesilas Yesharim, Zecher Tzadik V'Kodesh Brachas Chus V'Yagen Aleinu, says in the Derech Hashem. He says, Klal Yisrael was surrounded by Anonim. Why Anonim? Why clouds? There could have been something else. Hashem could have sent armies. Hashem could have made the sun not so shining at us. Hashem could have warmed it up for us. Why were we surrounded by clouds? He says there's a much greater idea here. We were surrounded by clouds to let us know, as we were just taken by Hashem as His nation, and we were being broken in as Niyama Nifcher, as B'nai B'chari Yisrael, Hashem, as we learned Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu, Yomam V'Layla, the Dar Deya, in the desert, Hashem surrounded us with clouds to let us know we're a different type of people. We should feel like we're in heaven even when we're upon the earth. We should know that we should live a ruchnius existence and not a gashmiistic existence. We leave our fancy homes and we go into the irlak of the sukkah, which represents the Ananiah Kavod, at the beginning of the year after Yom Kippur, in order to remind us that our focus should be on the heavenly, on the ruchnius, on doing mitzvahs, learning Torah, giving tzedakah. That's the essence of our life. We're surrounded by clouds. We're living in a completely different world than the Goyim, whose essence is what's going to be with the Mets, whose essence is what kind of a steak am I going to eat? Is it going to be hanger? Is it going to be oyster? Is it going to be skirt? Is it going to be tomahawk? Is it going to be cowboy? What kind of a sauce? Is it going to be onions, mushrooms? Is it going to be a sweet sauce? Right? Where am I going to sleep? On a Duxiana bed? Which hotel am I going to go to? What vacation am I going to have? Right? Our focus should be on mitzvahs. We should view our life always as clouds surround us. A himmeldika life. And then, when we live a heavenly life, then the neshama in us is going to feel fulfilled. Pikudei Hashem yesharim mesamchei leiv, and then we'll be able to fulfill v'hayisa ach sameach. May we all be zeicha to a sukkah full of simcha. Remember before sukkahs, if you're listening before sukkahs, to turn on the light in your sukkah, to take off the rain roof, to put in your hashanas and aravas in your lulav. If you have a new mauser, to separate the pages. And remember tonight, L'adlik ner shel Yom Tov and Shechianu. When you say a Shechianu in Kiddush in the sukkah, you could look around at your family and have them in mind too when you make a Shechianu. Rabbeinu Shalom, I live to see such families. Some people, Rachmana litzlan, don't live to see Einiklach. They don't live. They don't even live to see son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. What a schus it is to make such a Shechianu. Again, to sponsor such shiurim, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. If somebody wants to help out these shiurim, you could zell to rmmwsi@aol.com. I want to wish everybody, from my family to yours, a chag kosher v'sameach and all kinds of happiness.